along to a Wednesday morning. Now, loneliness, it can come in all sorts of ways, but particularly when you lose a loved one, if you lose your spouse. And it appears that there's not too many ways of getting around the grief. Someone that's looked into this is a world-leading loneliness expert, and that is Dr. Rosanne Freak-Poli from Monash University, who has spent some time with us on the line. Hello, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me today.
No problems at all. The first question I want to ask you, just for my benefit, is when did you come up with the thought process that you wanted to get into loneliness as a career?
Well, I was, this is before COVID, so before everyone started really feeling the effects of loneliness. I was interested in personal experiences that may impact our health and well-being later in life. And there was already some evidence showing that there was an effect from loneliness, that people who, and I have also increased that evidence showing that people that are lonely or socially isolated have higher rates of cardiovascular disease, dementia, and early mortality, early death. Very interesting field to get into, though. Isn't it? It is, and I think that the way I think about it is we have so many things that contribute to our health and well-being that are undiscovered, and bringing our awareness to those things, because now it's beyond, eating our fruit and vegetables. We have so many other things that we can do to improve our well-being later in life.
Absolutely. Now, this study is very interesting because there were people saying that, look, if you've got a great group of friends around you, you don't grieve as much, or if you've got plenty of cash in the bank, you can get away from it all and what have you. But the study has found that's not the case at all.
Well, initially that's what I thought we were going to find, that if we had people around us, if we had people that were supporting us, we'd feel less lonely. But we didn't find that. What we found that it's a really universal feeling that after you lose your spouse, that you're very likely to feel lonely, and that is going to be long-term loneliness. So straight after, we found we did follow people over time. So this is from 19 years of data from the Household Income and Labour Dynamics in Australia survey. It's called HILDA. And people from households that represent Australians all fill in the survey every year. So we could look at 749 widowed people and compare them to just over 8,000 married people. And we found that leading up to someone's widowhood, they did start becoming a bit more lonely. Sometimes that's because they have to care for someone. And then afterwards, the loneliness continues to increase to about at 1 year. And then it peaks at 1 year, and it slowly decreases after that.
Very interesting figures. We've got a situation where we know that generally women live longer. Does that make them more resilient as far as moving on when their spouse passes away? Because you often find that women are more stoic, whereas men get very depressed and are very lonely after somebody passes away, particularly their wife or their partner.
So both men and women increase their loneliness after losing a partner. Women doubled their loneliness, where men tripled 3 times their loneliness.
Wow.
Now, because women live longer, they're more likely to experience widowhood than men. So there are a lot more, perhaps, social groups that are widowed female groups.
Yes.
So it might be harder for men to find their new, friendship groups of widowed people. So that could also be playing into that higher widowhood higher loneliness after widowhood for men.
And with some of the figures, we often hear, and you often hear, particularly in twilight years, where you'll have a wife pass away, and it only seems like a very short period of time where the husband will pass away, or vice versa, particularly as they get older. Did you find any signs of that with the study that you did, that one person's death can lead to another person's death shortly after?
That is a known research. That is known in research already, and particularly for men. And that's partly in the past they've thought that's because women provide a lot of social support and health, cooking and cleaning, these sort of healthy behaviours for the male counterpart. So I didn't look at that in my study, but we do know that losing both after you lose a spouse, that you may have increased risk of death yourself.
And in the study, were you staggered by some of the figures that you saw in regard to the grief and loneliness thing? And basically, we've got to face the fact that you can't do too much about it. It's going to hit us.
That's right. So what I was originally looking at was whether or not if you have just people around you, whether or not your loneliness would be lower, and we didn't find that. Whether or not you feel supported by, even if you have one or two people around you, do you feel that support from them after you lose a spouse? And that didn't matter to their loneliness. How about wealth? We did find that for men, if you were wealthier, it did have some protection, but still not that much. And then for women, we found that if someone was employed or volunteering, if they were living in poverty or having long-term mental health conditions, that actually exacerbated the loneliness. So we didn't actually find anything that could particularly protect people, which is what I was looking for. And now when you say you can't do anything about it, I do want to alert people that there are some things that we can do.
Okay. So, and what would those be?
Yeah, so one of the things is it might not be something you can do straight away, but, redirecting your thoughts to what you might like your life to look like now that you don't have a partner. Now, we all compromise in relationships, and potentially there's something that you'd like to explore, an interest or a hobby that you haven't been doing, and potentially thinking about doing that. Now, it might not happen straight away, but if you think about your future self in 3 years, it's small steps towards doing those things. We also have some helplines, and this is for anyone who is experiencing loneliness or just wants to talk to someone. It's called Friendline, and it's 1-800 for chats. So that's 1-800-424-287. There's also Lifeline Australia, so that's 131114. And Beyond Blue has also a chat line, which is 1300-224636.
Okay, thank you so much for your research, and thank you for the work that you've done on this. And it's a real eye-opener as far as grief. So it looks like that not only is deaths assured, taxes assured, but also grief's assured now too.
That's true. Death, taxes, and loneliness from grief.
Great to talk to you. Thank you so much for that information.
Thank you.